Dr. Rebecca Hayes watched through the transport window as Earth grew smaller behind her. The blue marble that humanity called home was disappearing into the black, replaced by the growing silhouette of the Galactic Council's research station. It looked like a massive wheel spinning slowly in the void, its lights twinkling against the darkness. This was going to be her home for the next 6 months. A loud meow came from the carrier beside her seat. "I know, Winston. I know," Rebecca said, glancing down at the orange tabby cat who glared at her through the mesh door. Just a few more minutes. The transport docked with a gentle thud. Rebecca gathered her bags, picked up Winston's carrier, and stepped into the airlock. The doors slid open to reveal 3 figures waiting for her. They were Quellans, insectoid, beings with chitinous bodies that gleamed under the station lights. Their compound eyes reflected her image back 1,000 times. The lead Quellan stepped forward, his 6 legs moving in perfect coordination. "Dr. Hayes, welcome. I am Ambassador Norik." His voice came through a translation device that made his words sound crisp and formal. "We are honored to host you for this cultural exchange." "Thank you, Ambassador. I'm excited to be here." Rebecca shifted Winston's carrier to her other hand. The cat meowed again, louder this time. Ambassador Norik's antennae twitched forward. "Ah, yes, your companion animal. We were most pleased when you requested to bring it. This presents an excellent research opportunity." The Quellan beside Norik leaned closer, peering into the carrier. "Fascinating. This is a feline, correct? We have studied your canine species extensively, but felines are less documented in our databases." "This is Winston," Rebecca said. "He's an orange tabby cat. I hope it's not a problem that I brought him. Long trips away from home are easier with a pet." "Not a problem at all," Norik assured her. "In fact, Dr. Fillion here has been eager to observe the human-animal bond in person. We have a theory we would like to explore during your stay." Dr. Fillion clicked his mandibles together in what Rebecca had learned was a Quellan expression of excitement. "Indeed. We have analyzed human civilization extensively, Dr. Hayes. Your species rose to dominance on your planet through a remarkable strategy. You bonded with other species and brought them under your control. Dogs, horses, cattle, birds. You turned Earth's creatures into tools and servants. This dominance bonding is the foundation of your success." Rebecca blinked. "I wouldn't exactly call it dominance." "You are modest," Norik interrupted. "But the evidence is clear. Humans command other species to obey. This shows your strength. The Quellan hierarchy functions similarly, though we have never successfully extended it to non-Quellan species. You will teach us much." Before Rebecca could respond, Winston let out a yowl that echoed through the corridor. The 3 Quellans jumped back in surprise. "He doesn't like being in the carrier for too long," Rebecca explained. "Could I see my quarters? I'd like to let him out." Of course. Norik gestured with 2 of his limbs. "Follow me." They walked through corridors that curved with the station's rotation. Other aliens passed them, some humanoid, others completely foreign in shape. A few stopped to stare at the carrier, whispering to each other. Apparently, bringing a cat to a space station was unusual even by galactic standards. The guest quarters were spacious, with a large window showing the curve of Earth below. Rebecca set down her bags and immediately opened Winston's carrier. The orange cat shot out like a furry missile, running directly to the center of the room where a beautiful crystalline sculpture sat on a pedestal. It looked expensive. It looked important. Winston sniffed it once, then casually swatted it with his paw. The sculpture tumbled off the pedestal and shattered on the floor. "Winston." Rebecca rushed forward, but the cat had already moved on, completely unbothered by the destruction. He was now investigating a corner of the room, his tail swishing back and forth. "I am so sorry," Rebecca said, turning to the Quellans. All 3 were standing perfectly still, their antennae straight up in what she was learning to recognize as shock. "I'll pay for that. I should have checked the room first before letting him out." Ambassador Norik's antennae slowly lowered. "The artifact was merely decorative. Do not concern yourself." He paused, watching Winston sniff along the baseboards. "But I am curious. Did you command the creature to test the structural integrity of our furnishings? What? No, he just knocked it over. Just knocked. Cats do that sometimes. Interesting. Dr. Fillion pulled out a small device and began making notes. The human claims no intentional command was given. Perhaps the training is so deep that the creature acts on implied desires. Revolutionary. No, that's not... Rebecca started, but Winston chose that moment to hop onto the bed, circle 3 times, and flop down dramatically in the center. He began grooming his paw, completely ignoring everyone in the room. The creature now rests, Norik observed. You must have transmitted the rest command through subtle body language. Remarkable control. Rebecca looked at Winston, who paused his grooming to yawn widely, showing all his teeth. Then he went back to licking his paw. Ambassador Norik, Rebecca said carefully, I think there might be some misunderstanding about how cats work. You are too modest, Dr. Hayes. We have observed human interactions with domesticated species for many cycles. The pattern is clear. Humans give commands. Animals obey. This is how your species built civilization. Norik's antennae curved forward in what seemed like satisfaction. Over the next 6 months, we will document this process in detail. Your feline companion will help us understand the full scope of human dominance bonding. Rebecca opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. How could she explain that cats were nothing like dogs? That Winston didn't obey commands because he simply didn't want to? That cats had basically domesticated themselves and humans just went along with it? Winston rolled onto his back, stretching all 4 legs out in different directions. His belly fur caught the light from Earth below. He looked utterly content and completely unconcerned with the 3 alien scientists analyzing his every move. I'll do my best to help with your research, Rebecca finally said. Though something told her this was going to be a very long 6 months, Dr. Fillion made another note. Excellent. We will begin formal observations tomorrow. I am eager to see the human demonstrate command protocols. Rebecca glanced at Winston, who was now staring at a spot on the ceiling where nothing existed. Good luck with that, she thought. The observation lab reminded Rebecca of a theater. Rows of seats curved around a central arena where she now stood with Winston. Above them, at least 20 Quellan researchers watched from behind transparent panels, their antennae twitching with anticipation. Dr. Fillion sat in the front row, surrounded by monitoring equipment that blinked and hummed. Whenever you are ready, Dr. Hayes. Ambassador Norik's voice came through the speakers. Please demonstrate basic command responses. Rebecca looked down at Winston. The cat sat beside her feet, his tail wrapped neatly around his body. He looked calm. He looked cooperative. This was a trap, Rebecca knew. Winston was lulling her into false confidence. Okay, Winston, sit. Winston was already sitting. He blinked slowly at her. Good boy, she said, feeling ridiculous. Above them, she heard excited clicking as the Quellans made notes. Now stand up. Winston continued sitting. His ear twitched slightly, tracking some sound Rebecca couldn't hear. Winston, stand. The cat yawned. His pink tongue curled as he stretched his jaw wide. Then he settled back into the exact same sitting position. Rebecca tried a different approach. Winston, come here. She took several steps away and patted her knee. Winston looked at her. His green eyes were completely unimpressed. Then with deliberate slowness, he turned his head to look in the opposite direction. The creature defies the command, Dr. Fillion observed through the speaker. Is this part of the training? Does disobedience serve a purpose in human hierarchy? No, he's just being difficult, Rebecca muttered. She walked back to Winston and tried to pick him up. The cat went completely limp, becoming somehow 3 times heavier than his actual weight. It was a skill all cats possessed, Rebecca was convinced. The ability to manipulate physics when they didn't want to be moved. She managed to lift him anyway, carrying him to the other side of the arena. The moment she set him down, Winston walked directly back to where he had been sitting before. He sat down in the exact same spot and resumed staring at nothing. The Quellans buzzed with confusion. Perhaps we should try the comparison demonstration, Norik suggested. Dr. Fillion, activate the recordings. A large holographic display flickered to life in the center of the arena. It showed a human woman in a park with a golden retriever. The woman held up her hand. "Stay," she commanded. The dog stayed, tail wagging. "Come," she called. The dog bounded to her immediately. "Sit." The dog sat. The woman gave the dog a treat and scratched behind its ears. The recording changed to show a man with a horse. He led it through an obstacle course with gentle commands and touches. The horse followed his guidance perfectly, stepping over poles and around barrels. Another recording showed a woman with a parrot perched on her arm. The bird responded to her requests, turning in circles and spreading its wings on command. "These are examples of human command protocols," Norik explained. "The creatures respond immediately to human directives. This demonstrates the sophisticated training methods your species has developed." The recordings faded. The Quellans turned their attention back to Rebecca and Winston. Winston was now grooming his back leg, one paw stuck straight up in the air. He looked like he was auditioning for a yoga class. "Would you like to demonstrate similar commands with your feline?" Dr. Fillion asked. Rebecca pulled a small bag of treats from her pocket. She'd come prepared, at least. "Winston, look at me." The cat continued grooming. She shook the treat bag. It rattled enticingly. "Winston, treats." One ear rotated toward her. That was it. Just one ear. "I have chicken treats," Rebecca said, her voice taking on a slightly desperate edge. "Your favorite." Winston paused his grooming. He lowered his leg and looked directly at Rebecca. His eyes focused on the treat bag. He stood up. Rebecca felt a surge of hope. Finally, he was going to cooperate. Winston stretched, his back arching high. Then he walked in the completely opposite direction, heading toward the edge of the arena where he found a water bowl the Quellans had provided. He took a long drink, then sat down and began grooming his face. The silence from the observation deck was deafening. Rebecca walked over to the water bowl and held a treat right in front of Winston's nose. The cat sniffed it. For a moment she thought he might actually take it. Instead, he turned his head away with such deliberate disdain that Rebecca actually heard one of the Quellans gasp. "I don't understand," Dr. Fillion said. "The human offers sustenance. The creature should comply. This is basic biological imperative." "Cats are complicated," Rebecca tried to explain. She set the treat on the floor next to Winston. Maybe if she wasn't offering it directly, he would eat it out of spite. Winston looked at the treat. He reached out one paw and batted it across the floor. It skittered away, bouncing into a corner. The cat watched it go with mild interest, then went back to grooming. "Did the human command that action?" Norik asked. "Is this retrieval training?" "No, he just likes knocking things around," Rebecca said. She was starting to get a headache. Winston suddenly stood up. Rebecca's hopes rose again. Maybe he was finally going to do something productive. The cat walked to the center of the arena, right under the brightest light. He flopped onto his side, rolled onto his back, and sprawled out in the warmth of the lamp above. Within seconds, he was purring loud enough that the sound carried through the observation lab. "The creature has entered a rest state," Dr. Fillion noted. "Did you signal this command?" "I didn't signal anything." He found a sunny spot and decided to nap. "That's what cats do." Rebecca watched Winston's chest rise and fall with his breathing. His paws twitched slightly as he settled deeper into sleep. She checked her watch. They had been in the observation lab for 20 minutes, and the only thing Winston had successfully demonstrated was his complete indifference to everything and everyone. "Perhaps the human's commands are too subtle for our instruments to detect," suggested another researcher. "The creature clearly responds to something. It moved to the optimal temperature zone without verbal instruction. This shows sophisticated nonverbal communication. Or he just likes warm spots," Rebecca said. But she could tell they weren't listening. "We should observe the creature in its natural habitat," Norik decided. "Dr. Hayes, please return to your quarters with the feline. We will install monitoring equipment to record all interactions. Surely in a familiar environment we will witness the true nature of human command protocols." Rebecca looked down at Winston, who was now snoring softly, his belly exposed to the warm light. She had tried to warn them. She had tried to explain that cats were different, but they hadn't listened. "Sure," she said. "We can try that." As she bent down to pick up Winston, he opened one eye and looked at her. Then, just as she was about to lift him, he rolled away and trotted toward the exit on his own, tail high in the air. The Quellans erupted in excited chatter. Apparently, this was the most fascinating thing they had ever seen. 3 days had passed since the observation lab disaster. Rebecca's quarters now looked like mission control. The Quellans had installed cameras in every corner, motion sensors along the walls, and something that looked suspiciously like a brain scanner pointed at Winston's favorite sleeping spot. The cat remained unbothered by all of it. Dr. Fillion arrived that afternoon with 2 other Quellans. One was younger, with brighter coloring on her carapace. The other was larger, with military insignia etched into his shoulder plates. "Dr. Hayes, this is researcher Prill, my assistant." Dr. Fillion gestured to the younger Quellan. "And this is Station Commander Hethix. He has taken a personal interest in our research." Commander Hethix's antennae swept forward, and what Rebecca had learned was a gesture of scrutiny. Understanding human tactical superiority requires understanding how you train your allied species. If humans can command Earth creatures with such precision, we must know the method. Allied species is a generous term for cats, Rebecca said, but they ignored her. "We have designed a definitive test," Dr. Fillion announced. "We will present your feline with various scenarios. You will demonstrate your command protocols, and we will finally document the precise nature of human-animal control." They led Rebecca and Winston to a new facility, larger than the observation lab. Inside, the Quellans had constructed an elaborate obstacle course. There were ramps, tunnels, platforms at different heights in what looked like a maze. At various points throughout the course, they had placed treats, toys, and other items meant to motivate a cat. Winston took one look at the setup and sat down in the doorway. "Please proceed with the demonstration," Commander Hethix said. Rebecca picked up Winston and carried him to the starting line. She set him down gently. "Okay, buddy. Let's try to make me look slightly competent here." Winston sniffed the ground. He took 2 steps toward the first ramp, and Rebecca felt a flutter of hope. Then a maintenance drone buzzed past overhead, its lights blinking as it moved along its programmed route. Winston forgot the obstacle course entirely. His pupils dilated to huge black pools. His back legs wiggled as he prepared to pounce. Every predatory instinct in his small body focused on the flying drone. "Winston, no." The cat launched himself into the air, paws outstretched toward the drone. He missed by at least 2 feet, landing in an undignified heap on the floor. The drone continued on its path, completely unaware of the assassination attempt. "Fascinating," Prill breathed. "The human has trained the creature to prioritize aerial threats. This is threat assessment protocol." "He's not assessing threats, he just wants to catch the shiny thing," Rebecca said. But Winston was already crouching for another attempt. The cat jumped again. This time he crashed into a stack of equipment the Quellans had set up for monitoring. The equipment toppled with a spectacular crash. Winston landed in the middle of the wreckage, looking surprised. "The creature neutralizes potential obstacles," Commander Hethix observed. "Impressive tactical application." Before Rebecca could respond, Winston spotted one of the toys the Quellans had placed in the maze. It was a feather on a string, meant to lure him through the course. Instead of following the path, Winston tried to squeeze through the bars of the maze itself. He got his head through, then his front legs, but his body stuck. He was trapped, his back half sticking out one side of the maze and his front half on the other side. His tail lashed in frustration. "Oh no!" Rebecca rushed over. "Hold still, Winston." The cat did not hold still. He wiggled and twisted, making the situation worse. Rebecca had to carefully work him backwards out of the bars while he yowled his displeasure at maximum volume. "The human rescues the subordinate creature even when it fails its assigned task," Norik said, his voice filled with something like awe. "This shows remarkable patience and investment in the training process." "I'm just making sure he doesn't hurt himself," Rebecca said, finally freeing Winston. The cat immediately tried to go back through the same bars. She picked him up and moved him away from the maze. "Different approach. Let's try the tunnel." She set Winston at the entrance of a fabric tunnel. It was simple, just a straight path through to the other side where a treat waited. Even Winston couldn't mess this up. Winston sniffed the tunnel entrance. He poked his head inside. Then he backed up, turned around, and walked away to investigate a water dish in the corner. "He's thirsty," Rebecca explained. "We can try again after." Winston finished drinking. But instead of returning to the obstacle course, he walked directly to Ambassador Norik, who was standing near the observation window. The cat looked up at the Quellan, his green eyes curious. Norik reached down with one of his limbs, attempting to pet Winston. "Hello, small creature. You are quite remarkable." Winston's paw shot out, claws extended. He swatted Norik's limb hard enough to leave 3 distinct scratch marks on the chitinous surface. The entire room went silent. Norik pulled his limb back, staring at the scratches. They weren't deep, but they were visible. The creature attacked me. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, Rebecca rushed over. Winston, bad cat, bad. She looked at Norik. Are you hurt? He doesn't usually scratch people. Well, not usually, sometimes, okay, he scratches people. Wait, Commander Hethick said slowly. Dr. Hayes, did you command the creature to attack Ambassador Norik? What? No. But you must have, Hethick insisted. The creature would not act against a superior being without human authorization. This was a dominance display. You ordered the attack to establish boundaries. I absolutely did not order anything. Winston scratched him because cats don't like being grabbed by strangers. It's that simple. All the Quellans looked at each other. Their antennae waved in what Rebecca was learning to recognize as confusion. You claim the creature acted independently? Norik asked, examining his scratched limb. Without your command? Yes, that's what I've been trying to tell you. Cats do what they want. But that's impossible, Dr. Fillion said. How can you maintain control over a creature that acts on its own impulses? I don't maintain control. That's the point. Winston chose that moment to discover the feather toy in the maze. He pounced on it, getting tangled in the string. The toy dragged behind him as he ran across the obstacle course, knocking over platforms and scattering treats everywhere. He looked like a small orange tornado of chaos. Prill watched with her mandibles slightly open. This is the most confusing thing I have ever witnessed. Rebecca couldn't help but laugh. Welcome to living with cats. Commander Hethick stepped forward. Dr. Hayes, I believe we need to completely reassess our understanding of human-animal interaction. This is not what we expected. This is not what we studied. But it is clearly something significant, he paused. Can you explain to us from the beginning how this relationship actually works? Rebecca looked at Winston, who had now gotten himself completely wrapped in the string and fallen over. He looked like a furry burrito with legs. I can try, she said, but I think I'm going to need more time than one demonstration. The formal council chamber was much bigger than Rebecca had expected. Curved rows of seats rose up from a central platform where she stood, clutching a small remote control for the holographic display. Dozens of Quellans filled the seats, along with representatives from other species. Word had spread about the confusing human and her disobedient pet. Everyone wanted to understand. Winston sat on the podium beside her laptop, completely unconcerned with the audience. He was grooming his back leg in that way cats do, with total focus and zero shame. Ambassador Norik called the chamber to order. Dr. Hayes has requested this opportunity to clarify the nature of human relationships with domesticated animals. Given the confusion of recent days, we have agreed this explanation is necessary. He gestured toward Rebecca. Please proceed. Rebecca took a breath and activated the display. An image of a wildcat appeared, similar to Winston but sleeker and more obviously feral. This is what cats looked like about 10,000 years ago. They were wild predators living in forests and grasslands. Humans didn't hunt them down and force them to be pets. That's not what happened. She changed the image to show ancient human settlements. When humans started farming and storing grain, mice and rats came to eat the grain. The wildcats noticed the mice and rats. They came closer to human settlements to hunt them. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. The cats got easy prey. Humans got pest control. Nobody commanded anyone. It just happened. Prill raised a limb. But surely humans eventually domesticated these cats? Brought them under control? Not really, Rebecca said. Cats basically domesticated themselves. They chose to live near humans. Over time, the cats that were more comfortable around people had advantages. They had better food sources, safer places to have kittens. Natural selection favored cats that could tolerate humans. But here's the important part. Cats never became dependent on following human commands. Dogs did, horses did, but not cats. She pulled up another image, this one showing a cat sitting on a sunny windowsill. Cats live with us because they choose to, not because we control them. But Dr. Hayes, Commander Hethick interrupted, how can you build a civilization on relationships without control? How do you coordinate anything? Rebecca smiled. That's exactly what I want to explain. But first, let me tell you something about dogs. She changed the display to show a human and a dog playing in a park. Humans did help domesticate dogs. We bred them for different purposes: herding, hunting, guarding. And yes, we trained them to follow commands, but it's not about dominance anymore. Modern research shows that dogs cooperate with humans because they want to. They're bred to be social, to read human emotions, to work as partners. The best dog training isn't about forcing obedience. It's about building a relationship based on trust and mutual benefit. Winston finished grooming his leg and stood up. He stretched, arching his back dramatically. Then he walked directly across Rebecca's laptop keyboard. The presentation jumped forward 3 slides. Text appeared in the search bar that Winston had somehow typed. It was just random letters, but the audience murmured, "Sorry, that was an accident." Rebecca picked up Winston and moved him to the side. The cat immediately walked back to the laptop. "Your feline demonstrates independence," Norik observed, "even during an important presentation." "Exactly," Rebecca said, "and I'm not punishing him for it. I'm not forcing him to sit still. He's a living being with his own wants and needs. That's the point I'm trying to make." She changed the display manually this time, showing images of various human relationships, families laughing together, friends helping each other move furniture, volunteers building houses, scientists collaborating on research. Humans don't operate on pure dominance hierarchies. We cooperate. We build bonds based on choice, not force. We extended that same principle to animals. "But what about your armies?" Commander Hethix challenged. "Your corporations? Your governments? These require hierarchy and control." "They require structure," Rebecca corrected. "But the best human organizations aren't held together by fear or dominance. They work because people choose to participate. Because there's mutual benefit. Because we build trust." She paused. "Sure, humans can be controlling. We have authoritarian leaders and bad bosses and unhealthy relationships. But those aren't our strength. Those are our failures." Winston chose this moment to show affection. He walked over to Rebecca, rubbed his head against her arm, and jumped into her lap. He circled twice, kneaded his paws into her legs, and settled down with a rumbling purr. The audience gasped. "The creature approaches without being summoned," Prill said quietly. "It initiates contact." "Yes," Rebecca said, stroking Winston's back. He purred louder. "He's sitting with me because he wants to, not because I commanded it. This is affection. This is choice." Dr. Fillion stood up from his seat. "Dr. Hayes, I think I begin to understand. You are saying that humans form bonds without requiring control?" "Exactly. We're capable of relationships where both sides have agency, where both sides can say no, where respect goes both ways. But the creature still depends on you for food and shelter," another researcher pointed out. "Surely that creates a power imbalance." "It does," Rebecca admitted. "And humans have a responsibility to care for animals we bring into our homes. But it's not ownership in the way you're thinking. It's more like guardianship, stewardship. I take care of Winston, but I don't own his thoughts or control his choices. He's his own being." She pulled up a new image, this one showing humans with various animals. A woman with a horse nuzzling its nose. A man with a parrot perched on his shoulder, the bird clearly relaxed and happy. A child gently holding a rabbit. In every one of these relationships, the human has more power. We're bigger, smarter in some ways, able to control resources. But the relationship works because we choose not to abuse that power. We choose to respect the animal as an individual. Winston suddenly bit Rebecca's hand. Not hard, but definitely a bite. She had been petting him wrong, apparently. Too close to his belly. "Ow, okay, point taken." She moved her hand to scratch behind his ears instead. He resumed purring. "You allow the creature to correct your behavior," Norik said slowly. "Even though you could easily overpower it. Of course. He's telling me his boundary. I respect that." "This is remarkable," Dr. Fillion said. He was making rapid notes on his device. "Your strength as a species isn't your ability to dominate. It's your ability to form genuine partnerships, even with creatures that cannot match your intelligence or power. We do it with each other too," Rebecca added. "Humans from different cultures, different backgrounds, different beliefs. We're not always good at it. We fail a lot. But when we succeed, when we build real cooperation based on respect and choice, that's when we're at our best." Commander Hethix's antennae were perfectly still, a sign of deep thought. "This explains much about human behavior in the Galactic Council. You seek consensus rather than dominance. You build alliances through trust rather than force. We thought this was weakness." "It's not weakness," Rebecca said. "It's how we've survived this long." Winston stood up, stretched, and hopped off Rebecca's lap. He walked to the edge of the podium and sat down, his back to the entire audience, staring at nothing in particular. Several Quellans clicked their mandibles in what might have been laughter. Your feline makes an excellent point, Prill said. He does not care about this grand assembly or our opinions. He exists on his own terms. And that's okay, Rebecca said. That's the whole point. The debate had been going on for 3 hours. Rebecca sat in the corner of the research station's common area, sipping something that tasted almost like coffee. Winston sprawled across her lap, occasionally opening one eye to check if anything interesting was happening. The answer was always no. On the other side of the room, 5 Quellan researchers argued in their clicking, humming language. Translator devices struggled to keep up with their rapid speech. Rebecca caught phrases like paradigm shift and fundamental misunderstanding, and implications for council policy. Prill separated from the group and approached Rebecca. The young researcher's antennae drooped with what Rebecca had learned was exhaustion. Your presentation has caused quite a disruption, Dr. Hayes. Sorry about that. I was just trying to clear up the confusion. Do not apologize. This disruption is necessary. Prill settled into a chair designed for Quellan bodies, her limbs folding in a way that looked uncomfortable, but apparently wasn't. Commander Hethix is disturbed. He wants to know how human military forces function, if not through strict dominance hierarchies. We do have ranks and command structures, Rebecca said, but the best military units are built on trust, not just obedience. Soldiers who trust their leaders fight better than soldiers who just fear punishment. This concept is difficult for us. Prill's antennae twitched. Quellan society is built on clear hierarchies. Everyone knows their place. It provides stability. Does it provide happiness? Prill went very still. That is not a question we typically ask. Before Rebecca could respond, Ambassador Norik joined them. He looked tired if Rebecca was reading his body language correctly. Dr. Hayes, I owe you an apology. We observed your species and saw only what we expected to see. We did not truly look. It's easy to do, Rebecca said. We all interpret things through our own experiences. Nevertheless, we were wrong. Norik gestured to Winston. Your feline companion has been an excellent teacher, though I suspect he has no idea he is teaching anything. As if summoned by his name, Winston chose that moment to do something unprecedented. He stood up, stretched, and jumped down from Rebecca's lap. Then he walked directly to Norik and sat at his feet, looking up at the Quellan with those inscrutable green eyes. Norik froze. Is this significant? He's probably hoping you'll pet him, Rebecca said. He scratched you before because you grabbed him without warning. But he's curious about you now. He's initiating contact on his own terms. May I? Go ahead. Just let him sniff your hand first. Norik lowered one limb slowly. Winston sniffed it, his whiskers twitching. Then he rubbed his head against the chitinous surface, marking Norik with scent glands in his cheeks. He is claiming me as familiar territory, Norik said softly. I have been researching feline behavior. They mark things they consider part of their environment. Congratulations, Rebecca smiled. You're officially part of Winston's world now. Dr. Fillion hurried over, his device ready to record. This is fascinating. The creature voluntarily approaches a non-human species. It forms bonds beyond its own kind. Cats can be social when they want to be, Rebecca explained. Some are more friendly than others. Winston is actually pretty social for a cat. He just does everything on his own schedule. Winston began purring as Norik carefully stroked his back. The sound filled the quiet space. This purring, Norik said. Our research indicates it is a sign of contentment. Usually, yes. Sometimes cats purr when they're nervous or sick too. It's complicated. Everything about your species is complicated, Norik said, but his tone was warm. And I am beginning to appreciate that complexity. Over the next few days, something shifted in the research station. The Quellans stopped trying to understand humans through the lens of dominance and control. Instead, they started asking different questions. Commander Hethix requested a presentation about human military cooperation. Rebecca showed him recordings of soldiers coordinating in battle, not through blind obedience but through training, trust, and shared purpose. She showed him footage of human aid workers, of disaster response teams, of communities coming together after tragedy. You have structure without tyranny, Hethix concluded. Order without oppression. This is what we failed to see. Prill became fascinated with human friendships. She watched recordings of people laughing together, supporting each other through difficult times, celebrating each other's successes. You choose your social bonds, she observed. Family is one thing, but these friendships you select individuals to be close to, regardless of hierarchy or biological connection. That's right, Rebecca said. We build families of choice, not just blood. Do Quellans not have friends? Prill's antennae drooped. We have colleagues, hive mates. But friendship, as you describe it, bonds based purely on mutual affection and choice. This is not common in our culture. Perhaps it should be. Dr. Fillion underwent perhaps the biggest transformation. He had spent years studying dominance hierarchies across the galaxy. Now he was questioning everything. I believed control was the foundation of all complex civilization, he told Rebecca one afternoon. They were in the observation lab, watching Winston chase a laser pointer that one of the younger researchers was operating. But humans prove this wrong. You cooperate across vast differences. You form alliances without conquest. You build trust with beings who cannot even speak your language. He gestured to Winston, who had caught the laser dot by the highly effective method of sitting on it. This small creature has dismantled decades of my research, and I am grateful for it. What will you do now? Study cooperation instead of control, partnership instead of dominance. Your species will be my primary case study. But I suspect there are others in the galaxy who follow similar patterns. We simply never looked because we assumed hierarchy was universal. That evening, Rebecca found herself back in her quarters with a visitor. Prill had brought a question. Dr. Hayes, how does one begin a friendship? By Quellan standards, I mean. If I wish to form a bond based on choice rather than hierarchy, what would I do? Rebecca thought about it. Well, you find someone you enjoy spending time with. You talk to them, share experiences, help each other when needed. Be honest. Respect boundaries. It takes time. Time, Prill repeated. Not a command or designation. Just time and choice. Exactly. Winston jumped up onto the table between them. He looked at Prill, then at Rebecca, then back to Prill. Then he did something that made both of them laugh. He flopped onto his side right on top of Prill's data pad and began grooming himself. I think that means he likes you, Rebecca said. The feeling is mutual, Prill replied, carefully scratching behind Winston's ears. The cat's purr rumbled through the quiet room. Outside the window, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, blue and green and beautiful. Humanity's home. A planet where cats had walked into settlements 10,000 years ago and decided to stay, not because anyone forced them, but because it was a good deal for everyone involved. Maybe that was humanity's real gift to the galaxy. Not dominance or control or superior technology, just the simple understanding that the best relationships, the strongest bonds, were built on something far more powerful than force. They were built on choice. The farewell ceremony was more elaborate than Rebecca had expected. The central plaza of the research station had been decorated with banners from dozens of worlds. Representatives from multiple species had gathered to mark the end of her 6-month stay. But more than that, they were marking something bigger. Ambassador Norick stood at the podium, his translator rendering his speech for the assembled crowd. When Dr. Rebecca Hayes arrived at this station, we believed we understood humanity. We had studied your history, your technology, your expansion into space. We thought we knew your secrets. He paused. We were wrong. A ripple of agreement moved through the Quellan delegates. Humans do not succeed through dominance. They succeed through cooperation, through bonds built on respect and choice, through the revolutionary idea that strength comes not from control but from trust. Norick gestured to Rebecca. This human and her feline companion have taught us more in 6 months than years of conventional research. The Galactic Council is formally updating its assessment of human civilization. Applause rose from the crowd, a mix of clicking mandibles, humming voices, and sounds Rebecca couldn't identify. She stepped up to the podium, Winston cradled in her arms. The cat looked supremely unbothered by the attention as usual. Thank you, Ambassador Norick. I came here to learn about your culture, and I did. But I'm glad I could share something about my own people, too. She scratched behind Winston's ears. Even if my teaching assistant was completely uncooperative the entire time. Laughter echoed through the plaza. I want to be clear about something, Rebecca continued. Humans aren't perfect. We struggle with cooperation. We fight with each other. We make mistakes. But we keep trying to build bridges instead of walls. We keep reaching out to others even when it's difficult. Especially when it's difficult. Prill stepped forward from the crowd. Dr. Hayes, before you leave, the Quellan Collective has a request. Of course. We would like to establish a cultural exchange program with Earth, not to study humans as subjects, but to learn from you as teachers. We want to understand cooperation, partnership, friendship. We want to bring these concepts back to our own society. Prill's antennae curved in what Rebecca now knew was hope. Would humanity be willing to help us? Rebecca felt warmth spread through her chest. I think humanity would be honored. Commander Hethix approached next. The military officer had changed significantly over the past months. His rigid posture had softened. His questions had become curious rather than interrogative. I have spent my life believing that hierarchy and control were the only paths to order. Your species has shown me there are other ways. Better ways. He inclined his head in respect. I will bring these lessons to our defense forces. Perhaps we can build an army that protects without dominating, that serves without enslaving. That's all any of us can do, Rebecca said. Try to be better than we were yesterday. Dr. Fillion was last. The researcher had become almost a different person over the past months. His obsession with dominance hierarchies had transformed into a passion for studying cooperative relationships across species. Dr. Hayes, I have a confession. When you first arrived, I thought you were hiding something. I thought human control over animals was so sophisticated that it appeared to be freedom. I could not imagine that the freedom was real. And now I understand that giving freedom is harder than taking it. That respecting another being's choices requires more strength than forcing obedience. You humans have that strength. I hope to learn it myself. Winston meowed loudly as if commenting on the speech. Several people laughed. Your feline wishes to depart, Norik observed. We should not keep you longer. Rebecca made her way through the crowd, accepting well wishes and exchanging contact information. She promised to return, to bring more humans for the exchange program to stay in touch. Prill walked with her to the transport dock. I will miss you, Prill said quietly. And Winston. I'll miss you too. You've become a good friend, Prill. The young Quellen's antennae lifted. Friend? Yes, I like that word. They embraced, awkwardly given their different body structures, but warmly nonetheless. Rebecca boarded the transport with Winston. She found her seat and settled the cat carrier beside her. But when she opened it to put Winston inside, he refused to enter. He sat on her lap instead, adamant. Winston, come on. You have to go in the carrier for takeoff. The cat stared at her with those green eyes. No. Rebecca sighed. Fine. But if we crash because you wouldn't follow safety protocols, I'm blaming you. Winston began purring. As the transport detached from the station and began its journey back to Earth, Rebecca looked out the window. The research station grew smaller behind them, its lights twinkling against the stars. She thought about everything that had happened. How a simple misunderstanding had led to a complete paradigm shift. How Winston's stubborn refusal to obey had become a diplomatic breakthrough. She pulled out her data pad and began typing her official report. But instead of a dry academic summary, she found herself writing something different, something honest. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our adaptability or our aggression. It's our ability to form genuine bonds with others, even those who are completely different from us. We don't build relationships through control. We build them through patience, respect, and the understanding that true loyalty comes from choice, not coercion. She paused, looking down at Winston. The cat had curled up in her lap, his body warm and heavy. He was purring so loudly she could feel the vibration through her legs. Sometimes the smallest, most stubborn creatures teach the biggest lessons. Earth grew larger in the window. Home. Rebecca thought about all the humans down there living with their pets, dogs and cats and birds and rabbits and countless others. Most people never thought about it deeply. They just loved their animals and were loved in return. But that simple act, choosing to share your life with another being, respecting their nature, accepting them as they are, maybe that was more revolutionary than anyone realized. Winston shifted in her lap, stretching one paw out to touch her hand. Not demanding anything, not obeying anything, just being present, being himself. Rebecca smiled and stroked his soft fur. Ready to go home, buddy? Winston opened one eye, looked at her, and yawned. Then he settled back down and resumed his nap, which was, Rebecca reflected, the most cat response possible, and somehow, absolutely perfect. The transport continued its journey through the stars, carrying a human and a cat, who had accidentally changed the galaxy's understanding of humanity. Neither of them had intended to be teachers. Neither of them had planned to start a revolution in how aliens viewed human civilization. But then again, the best lessons are often the ones we stumble into. The ones that happen naturally, organically, when we simply live according to our values and hope others understand. Winston had taught the aliens about humanity by being exactly what he was, a cat who did what he wanted, when he wanted and couldn't care less about anyone's expectations, and in doing so, he had shown them that humanity's real power lay in accepting others exactly as they were. Not bad for 6 months of work, even if Winston had slept through most of it. Rebecca looked down at her, sleeping cat, and whispered, "You're a terrible employee, but an excellent friend." Winston's ear twitched in response. He was probably dreaming of knocking things off tables. Some things never change. And sometimes, that's exactly what the galaxy needs.